Class is now in session. I'm Professor Hockey, and today we'll be discussing another San Jose Sharks trade. Now, obviously, there was that massive trade a couple of days ago that sent Timo Meier to the New Jersey Devils. This trade pales in comparison to what that one was, but that doesn't necessarily mean this trade isn't interesting. In fact, it is extremely interesting and features a player who could potentially be one of the better prospects for the San Jose Sharks moving forward, and that is that the Sharks have traded a 2024 third-round pick to the Anaheim Ducks in exchange for defensive prospect Henry Thrun. Now, you might be looking on the surface here and thinking a prospect traded for a third-round pick clearly doesn't seem to be highly valued. Usually, like an actual really good prospect would require a first-round pick, if not even more than that, to be able to change teams. You know, if you were to trade for like a Mason McTavish on the Anaheim Ducks at this point, you'd have to give up a lot of value because he has a ton of potential. So you're thinking, this prospect acquired for a third, this is a nothing trade. There's nothing doing here. But actually, because of the situation that Thrun is in, this is a lot more interesting than it might look on the surface. And that is because Thrun is a college player. And college players drafted to the NHL have a pretty interesting exception that they can fall under. And that is if they choose to not sign with their entry-level deal immediately with the team that drafted them and instead finish out all 4 of their college years. If they decide to do that, they have the opportunity to become an unrestricted free agent by the end of their senior year. So, for instance, a high-profile college player who has recently done that would be Adam Fox. Drafted by the Calgary Flames a few years ago, decided to play out his 4 college years still, and then by the end of that was an unrestricted free agent, did not sign with Calgary, and instead ended up signing with the New York Rangers. And as we know now, Fox has become one of the best defensemen in the National Hockey League and has won the Norris Trophy. So clearly a huge loss for the Flames and a big gain for the Rangers, which is why you'll see sometimes even somewhat skilled NCAA college players somewhat fall in the draft, as Thrun was a third-round pick a couple of years ago. So when it comes to these players, what are the reasons that they're necessarily choosing to not sign with the team that drafted them? Well, there are a few of them. One of the big ones definitely is the city, the environment that they would be playing in. So when it comes to Adam Fox, for instance, he might not want to play in snowy, cold Canadian Calgary, Alberta, but instead want to play in New York City, you know, the hub of at least the East Coast United States, one of the most recognizable cities not only in the country, but across the world, I would say. New York is the place to be, and so Fox might want to play there. But when it comes to Anaheim and San Jose, both these cities relatively close to each other, both in sunny California, so there isn't necessarily that much of a difference there. One of the other reasons that players might not want to sign with the team that drafted them would be if that team maybe isn't in a playoff position. They're not in this position where they'll be a playoff contender, and if that player wants to play some meaningful playoff hockey, they wouldn't be able to get that chance. However, when it comes to the Ducks and San Jose, again, the Ducks don't seem to be near a playoff spot at this point, right in the middle of their rebuild, and the Sharks are in an extremely similar situation. So if that's the reason, if he's not signing with Anaheim, you're probably not signing with San Jose. The third reason, and I'm sure from the San Jose Sharks perspective they're hoping for, would be if Thrun doesn't necessarily want to compete with so many other strong defensive prospects. If we take a look at the Ducks prospect pool, they have multiple strong defensive players who could be ranked ahead of Thrun in a sort of tier list of their prospects. Of course, Jamie Drysdale is the big one, but he has gotten a lot of NHL time recently, but even players who haven't gotten NHL time like Zellweger and Mindyukov still find themselves above Thrun on the depth chart. When it comes to the San Jose Sharks, besides the most recently acquired Shakir Mukhamadullin from the New Jersey Devils a couple of days ago, Thrun would almost certainly become one of the best defensive prospects, if not the best defensive prospect for the San Jose Sharks. And if he manages to beat out Mukhamadullin in that, he would be their number 1 defensive prospect and could very easily, especially with the trades that the Sharks are making and the moves that they seem to be going for, he could very easily be in the NHL playing top 4 NHL minutes as soon as next season. And on top of that, Thrun is also a left-handed defenseman, and so if Erik Karlsson does not get traded at the deadline this year, which seems very likely, and if he does not get traded at the draft this year, which is definitely a possibility, Thrun could end up playing on a top pairing with Erik Karlsson, which is obviously a huge boon for any defensive player. I mean, we've already seen it happen with Jacob Middleton suddenly plays with Erik Karlsson. He ends up getting traded to the Minnesota Wild because he is now a wanted player because Karlsson has given him that sort of boost defensively. Same goes with Jacob Megna, most recently traded to the Seattle Kraken just a couple of months ago. And so that would be a huge boost to Thrun's career, not only on the surface level, but also in his development, playing with one of the best defensemen of all time. Karlsson is not just one of the best defensemen in the league at this point, but his numbers speak for themselves in his career. He is one of the best defensemen of all time for sure. And so any defenseman prospect would be lucky to play with someone like that on their pairing. And so it is certainly a huge opportunity if he does sign with San Jose. And so if that is the reason he wants to have that open opportunity to play top 4 minutes, San Jose is definitely a fantastic location for him. But that is still, at the end of the day, an extremely risky trade. This is pure speculation. For all we know, it was indeed a city issue. He doesn't want to play on the West Coast or something like that. And so San Jose is not going to be that different of a situation. But I'm sure if Mike Grier is making such a bold move, risking a third-round pick like this, he is probably confident that he'll be able to get Thrun to sign with San Jose, at which point this would be a pretty big deal for the Sharks. Thrun was ranked in the Ducks, who have one of the best prospect pools, or at least one of the better prospect pools around the league. He was actually ranked, at least by The Athletic, as their 5th best prospect, which is a pretty huge deal. So Thrun could be a massive gain for the San Jose Sharks, and we'll see if they manage to lock him down over the coming months. Class dismissed.